Have you ever thought that the City of Angels, once a place that offered second chances to millions, is now the first to take away their last chance? However, in Los Angeles, that has actually happened. Once a symbol of hope, lights, and new beginnings, Los Angeles is now at the forefront of policies against its most vulnerable people, through measures that seem reasonable at first glance, but are actually disguised expulsions masquerading as urban order. Tents are being dismantled. The charity meal has been banned. The benches no longer have space to sit and rest. And the people who once built this city, now considered something to be discarded. In this video, let us walk through the remnants of the silent war between Los Angeles and its invisible residents, where policy is not just regulation, but a quiet decree that strips its residents of the very right to exist as human beings. Have you ever wondered why the benches in parks or under the subway are so uncomfortable to sit on? Along the parks, bus stops, and even at the foot of libraries in Los Angeles, you will encounter stone benches divided by iron bars. Some benches are slightly tilted forward. In other places, there's only a metal bar called a backrest, but it's too low to lean on, too high to sit comfortably. And all those details are not coincidental. This is not a design flaw. This is a strategy, known as defensive design, or the more controversial term, hostile architecture. An urban design school of thought is gradually enveloping major cities, including Los Angeles, with an implicit message. This space is not for you. Get up. Keep going. Don't stop here. So, who is the you in that message? No one says it outright. But when you see iron bars under store awnings, or metal spikes around pillars, under overpasses, all the places that used to be temporary shelters for the homeless, then you understand who is being targeted. And this trend is not limited to just a few benches. Once you pay attention, you'll see it everywhere. It's the dense cameras at the train station. It is the bird spikes on the lampposts. They are the jagged metal knobs attached to the wall base to prevent skateboarding. There was even a nighttime sprinkler system under the awning of a bookstore, not to water the plants, but to drive the homeless away to sleep elsewhere. Even the lamps used to light the streets were employed as a form of defensive design. When electric lights appeared in the 19th century, the city became safer and more bustling. And then people realized, if you can control the light, you can also control the presence of people. From there, a principle was born. An ideal public space is one that undesirable people cannot use. In theory, defensive design helps reduce crime, protect public property, and keep the urban environment tidy. But in reality, what is excluded is not just behavior, but people. People with disabilities cannot rely on handrails to rest. The elderly cannot sit down without feeling back pain. And for the homeless, it's not just a hard chair, but a clear message. You have no place in this society, ironically. While America is witnessing a trend of decreasing homelessness in many states, right in Los Angeles, the city once dubbed the birthplace of dreams, that number continues to rise. Nearly 75,000 people are wandering with no place to return to. Not because they chose to, but because life, with all its unforeseen events, has pushed them to the brink of despair. And when the last mattress under the roof was taken away, they didn't just lose a place to sleep. They lose the right to exist. In a city where even compassion has become scarce. The temporary shelters are overcrowded, lacking beds, and sometimes even harboring unpredictable dangers. And the streets, once a space for the community, are now cold and full of prohibitions. So, those cold metal bars are essentially the government's answer to the homelessness crisis. Don't lie down, don't stay, and if possible, don't exist in what we call public. When the city keeps announcing plans to renovate the subway, they boast about USB charging ports, smart boards, new lighting, but they never mention the rest bars. Because everyone knows that is the hardest part to talk about in the design. It's not just steel and screws. It is an ethical choice. So, who are we building the city for? And who is being pushed out of that picture, quietly yet ruthlessly? It's hard to believe. A country that can spend trillions of dollars to build nations for others, yet uses a few cents to play Baby Shark all night at the train station, just to drive its own poor citizens to sleep elsewhere. Baby Shark, do-do-do-do-do-do. A song with a cheerful melody meant for children. But here, this song is not used to nurture childhoods, but for a more cruel purpose. It is played all night, coming from a small speaker hanging from the ceiling of the subway station, repeating at a deafening volume, like a sophisticated measure to drive the homeless away from the community. For the authorities, this is a measure to prevent social evils. To passers-by, it is just a somewhat strange tune that keeps playing on repeat. But for the homeless, it is a clear message: you are not welcome here. Since January 2023, Los Angeles has implemented a 24/7 loud music system across subway stations and public corridors in Los Angeles. And it seems to be effective. The number of people sleeping in those places has significantly decreased. But the question is, where did they go? Some left the city. Some crawled into sewers, sidewalks, and narrow wall crevices. Some never wake up again. For them, that bright melody is the final farewell tune. From a city that was once a symbol of opportunity, now turned into a stage for sophisticated expulsion measures. Isn't it ironic? The melodies associated with childhood are now used to dismiss old age. When a society begins to use music to drown out the desperate cries of the poor, it is no longer a solution. It is a denial of existence. I remember a time, in this very America, when people played music to connect. Yet now, music has been distorted into a sophisticated tool for exclusion. Maybe you haven't noticed. Maybe you think this has nothing to do with you. But imagine one day you lose everything. Your home, your loved ones, your retirement. And when you seek shelter, what welcomes you is not human kindness, but a repetitive chorus of Baby Shark, as if driving away something that doesn't belong in the picture of urban growth. Are we building a civilized city? Or are we just deceiving each other with artificial light and false sounds? And is the price of development too high when we have to trade it for compassion? What do you hear when you think of the sounds on the boulevards of Los Angeles? It could be the sound of classical music echoing from an outdoor concert at the Hollywood Bowl, or the lively pop music reverberating from the bars along Venice Beach. But there is another kind of sound, more real, more painful, that people rarely mention. The sound of rotting wood, splintering, metal clashing, and bulldozers crushing through the makeshift camps of the homeless. Before the sun had a chance to shine on the eastern neighborhoods, the city's convoy quietly moved into Venice Boulevard and Beverly Hills, once among the largest encampments near downtown, without any warning. Only the sound of engines and the noise of materials being crushed, and the sound of hope of people gradually shattering as they are once again stripped of their last refuge. An old man sat quietly beside the pile of remaining belongings and shared, "This is the third time I've been pushed out onto the street. Each time I lose something more. First my job, then my dignity, and now even the right to exist. I'm not sure if I really still exist anymore. The city government claims they are liberating the sidewalks for the people and businesses. But on the contrary, very few people ask, aren't the homeless also part of the community? They were once among those who kept the wheels of America turning for decades. And now, after just one incident, they lost their homes and their place in society. Some people were taken to renovated old hotels, but most had to sleep in the park because the places called temporary shelters were always overcrowded. And even when they are lucky enough to get into a shelter, they still have to face potential dangers and a lack of privacy to the point where many choose to return to the streets. A 65-year-old woman shared, "It's more crowded and dangerous than prison. I would rather sleep outside than live in that disguised re-education camp every night." Los Angeles used to be the promised land, the place of lights, of opportunities, of new beginnings. But now, the city that once embraced everyone is gradually withdrawing its hands. Not because it can't help, but perhaps because it has forgotten how to help those who have nothing left but themselves. Each cleanup campaign not only takes away a few pieces of wood and some sleeping bags, but also sweeps away the trust and existence of people in the eyes of society. They gradually become invisible, not recognized in the report, no place in the community, no longer present in the conscience of a city once built by the very hands of laborers like them. While the sidewalks become cleaner and cleaner, the city becomes colder than ever. Could it be that we have swept away the tents? But what about the pain of the people beneath them? But if you think that dismantling the tents is the most heartless thing Los Angeles can do to the homeless, then there is another policy, quieter, but much colder. You have to move. You have to move. It may sound gentle, but for those who survive in the heart of the streets, those 3 words carry the weight of a sentence. No destination, no choice. Just have to disappear from the eyes of society. And if you don't leave on time, everything you have can be confiscated. From blankets and pillows, personal documents, to even the portraits of deceased loved ones. The only things left after a lifetime gathered into trash bags like discarded items. A man who used to be a mechanic, now living near Sunset Boulevard, recounted, "I set up camp in 5 different places, each time only staying a few days before being chased away. Every time I move, I lose a part of my life. A small stove, an old radio, a cat that has followed me for 3 years. I don't dare to call anywhere home anymore. I don't belong anywhere." According to a report by Human Rights Watch, from early 2024 to 2025, Los Angeles is vigorously implementing policies related to annual residential sweeps. Those relocations do not come with real housing solutions. No alternative shelter, no long-term support plan. Just clean up and chase away. Then, a few weeks later, you see them back on another street corner, starting from scratch, once again. This cycle not only raises questions about humanity, but is also extremely wasteful. Each round of evictions, relocations, hiring personnel, and renting vehicles costs millions of dollars from the city's budget. That is the money that could have been used to build houses, hire psychologists, or provide healthcare services. But instead, it is used to turn those who once paid taxes and contributed into out-of-signal people in their own city. Los Angeles used to be a microcosm of the dream America, but now each "you have to move" policy is another crack in the heart of that city. And it is also a painful reminder that if we only build cities to push people away, sooner or later, there will be no one left to believe in kindness. If you are taking care of a loved one, or have seen people in difficult circumstances having to leave Los Angeles because they can no longer live under increasingly harsh policies, consider suggesting they seek help from local legal aid centers or visit the Coalition for the Homeless to see if there are safer options for your loved ones. Have you ever witnessed the camps being dismantled right near your home? Or do you have relatives who were affected because they had no place to rely on? Please share your story in the comments section below. Who knows? Someone else might need to hear your experience to find a bit of hope. Do you believe it? Right in the heart of Los Angeles, once known as the promised land of America, giving a loaf of bread to the hungry could get you fined. Since the beginning of 2023, a series of new regulations have been passed in several areas of the city, including a provision that prohibits distributing food to the homeless in public spaces without a special permit. The reasons given are to protect urban hygiene and to prevent illegal gatherings. But for many long-time residents and volunteer groups, this is nothing more than a way to legalize indifference, closing the door on compassion with fines. A 72-year-old woman who used to cook soup to distribute every Tuesday evening at the corner near the church now has to stop due to a warning from the police. If you distribute one more portion, we will have to issue a citation. Meanwhile, many homeless people, especially the elderly, survive each day relying on these free meals. For them, a loaf of bread or a hot meal is not just food. It is a reminder that they are still seen by someone, that someone still cares. When those meals disappear, they are not just hungry. They're also starving for faith in humanity. The problem does not lie in the food. It lies in the message that kindness needs to be controlled, that you must ask for permission before caring for others. And when a society begins to tax kindness, we must ask ourselves, are we protecting the city from waste? Or are we pushing aside the weakest elements to maintain the beautiful image of the urban area? If you have ever distributed food, volunteered to cook for those in need, or lived in a time when neighbours still cared for each other, please share that story in the comments. Those small memories can inspire someone who is still quietly fighting against poverty right in this wealthy city. Can you imagine a city where sleeping in the wrong place is considered a crime? In Los Angeles, that is becoming a reality. According to Ordinance 41.18, also known as one of the harshest anti-homeless policies in the United States, sleeping on the sidewalk, near bus stops, parks, or schools can lead to being chased away by the police, fined, or even arrested. All just because you are trying to take a nap. The small signs scattered throughout the city signal no sleep zones, as if they are fencing off each piece of the American dream. Land that once welcomed the lost with open arms, now erecting signs that say no loitering allowed here. They say that Law 41.18 is not aimed at individuals. But try putting yourself in the shoes of an elderly homeless person, when the first thing you see every morning is a sea of no parking signs, and the first person you encounter is an officer holding a citation. Do you still feel like you belong in this city? What's more, most of the prohibited areas are precisely those close to public services, shaded places, restrooms, or simply quieter spots to sleep. And when they have nowhere to sleep, many people are pushed to more dangerous places, underpasses, under bridges, vacant lots. The authorities call it urban cleanup. But in reality, what is being swept away are the dreams struggling to survive through the night. So if a city no longer has a place for you to sleep peacefully, not because you are a threat, but simply because you are homeless, then whose city is it anymore? Across districts like Hollywood, Venice, Echo Park, people have set up no camping zones. It sounds like a law for ecotourism, but in reality, it is an implicit eviction order for those who have no home to return to. These areas do not need fences, do not need warnings. Just a small sign is enough to make an elderly homeless person roll up their blanket at 3 a.m., quietly leave, as if they themselves were committing a crime. And so, the city is becoming more and more crowded, but the places where one is allowed to rest are becoming fewer and fewer. The homeless are pushed from this area to another, from the park to the sidewalk, from the sidewalk to under the bridge, and then driven away again. Like an ink stain trying to seep into a sheet of paper coated with waterproof paint. They no longer have places to go, only places not to stay. The authorities believe that establishing no camping zones helps protect security and maintain aesthetics. But who is being protected? And before whom? Is it really the faded tents that threaten stability? Or is it the act of pushing people out of public view that is the true sign of a society unwilling to face reality? Do we still consider them a part of the community? When you see a no camping sign next to a welcome to LA sign, do you wonder, who is this city really welcoming? Would you dare step into a place that homeless people call the final trap? In Los Angeles, a city once dubbed the sunny paradise, shelters that seem like salvation are quietly pushing thousands of people into a cruel cycle, becoming homeless. Once again. A night in the shelter is not like a stopover. It is life among dozens of strangers, without walls, without privacy, without safety. The unwritten rules among the resident groups, the struggle for space, the physical invasions, all exist, but few dare to speak out. Because if you complain, you might be blacklisted and lose that rare spot. The elderly who once witnessed the time when America was built from the sandy deserts now have to stand in line under the rain to get a hot meal. They once believed in the system, that when everything fell apart, there would still be a place to return to. But now that very place to return has become the place that strips away the last remnants of faith. The place where you see most clearly that you have been pushed out of a society once called fair. So, is a shelter really a refuge? Or just a temporary stop before the next fall? How many of us believe that at least there's still a place to go, without realizing that this place might make people want to return to the streets? Do you remember the 2000s? When Los Angeles launched the Safer Cities Initiative, a name that sounds truly promising. Who wouldn't want to live in a safer city? But very few people know that that campaign turned Skid Row into one of the most heavily policed areas in the United States. And the ones being kept safe are not the homeless, but the rest of the city, which is trying to avoid them. The police are deployed just to manage a few blocks. Every month, hundreds of arrests occur, mostly for minor offences, like littering or sleeping at the wrong time on the sidewalk. The homeless people are caught in the whirlpool of the justice system, not to receive help, but to be eliminated. We build more prisons, increase patrols, but we don't build more hope. So what really makes the city safer? Is it about clearing the tents, or clearing the reasons that make people set up tents? If you have ever lived in Skid Row, been checked simply for sitting and resting, tell your story. And if you believe these policies need to be reconsidered, please subscribe to continue this journey with us. Because sometimes, what makes a city safe is what makes it no longer livable. There is a heartbreaking paradox happening in Los Angeles. As the number of homeless people skyrockets each year, the budget allocations meant to support them are increasingly being cut. The authorities call this a fiscal adjustment. But for the thousands of people sleeping in parks, under bridges, or next to bus stops every night, it marks the end of all hope. A low-cost housing program that once provided accommodation for over 3,000 elderly people was shut down last year. Meanwhile, the budget for mental health services, especially for the elderly and veterans, has also been cut by nearly 20%. This is not just abandonment. It is the feeling of being erased from the system they had contributed to for decades. People who once paid taxes, raised children, and built the community are now being turned away by the very place they contributed to. The surrounding residents, most of whom are also elderly, are starting to feel fear, confusion, and division. They see their peers collapsing by the roadside and wonder, am I going to be next? Have you ever known anyone who had to leave their home just because they couldn't afford both medicine and rent at the same time? If you have ever lived through a recession or witnessed a loved one lose their benefits, please share your story in the comments, because who knows, your account might just serve as a gentle warning for someone who needs it. And if you are looking for support, visit hud.gov, where you can search for affordable housing programs, or Benefits Checkup. AARP's benefitscheckup.org to see if you qualify for any assistance. Sometimes, just a click can save an entire winter from being frigid. Los Angeles, once a symbol of opportunity and new beginnings, is now sliding into a panic against those who once believed in this city. 10 policies enacted under the guise of sanitation and public safety are eroding what truly makes a city livable: compassion. From clearing encampments to banning food distribution, from anti-sleeping laws to cutting welfare budgets, all of these are pushing the homeless, especially the elderly, towards the edge of an irreversible abyss. Each of these policies, no matter how legally justified, carries a silent consequence. It turns the invisible into truly invisible. What do you think about what is happening in Los Angeles and across the United States? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. This video is analytical and exploratory in nature, with no intention of personal or organizational attacks or encouraging negative actions. All information is compiled from public sources and reputable press. We are committed to respecting people and valuing empathy. We do not support or oppose any individual or organization. We only reflect what is happening from a sociological perspective. We do not assert that this scenario will definitely happen, but current signs are causing concern among many people. This is not a judgment, but a gentle warning. And the rest, let the viewers feel for themselves.